Okay, so this is Beyond the Flyer, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, because Jen is actually coming in from the East Coast, right, today? So we're really excited that you're all joining us, and we ask that you please respect our presenter by staying on mute unless, of course, the presenter asks you to unmute. I'll be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions, feel free to use that function. We ask that you also please complete the survey at the end of the session today. And we will be recording this session to share out with everyone who was not able to attend. And with that, it is my great pleasure to turn this event over to Jen Manley.
Hello, thank you so much for being here. This is Beyond the Flyer, Actionable Ways to Grow Your CS Program. I'm Jen. I currently work in a really neat role with the University of Maryland Terrapin Teachers Program. I teach 2 sections of high school computer science, and then I also teach 2 courses at the University of Maryland. And because I'm in this sort of hybrid role, one of my other job duties is recruitment, growing the CS program at my high school. So before we get started, let me know in the chat, why did you choose to attend this session? Or what's your recruiting challenge? Pick one of the 2 of those and let me know. So there are lots of different challenges that schools face when recruiting for computer science. And we're going to talk today about some of them, why you might be facing challenges. All right, cool. I'm getting some coming in. Yeah, hard time getting students to sign up for them as electives. Yep. Or how do we get them to stay? Once they get in, they stay, but getting them started is hard. Yeah, definitely. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because there are reasons that it's hard to get students started in computer science, particularly if you're, talking about underrepresented groups, including female students. And so we'll talk about some of those particular challenges. But I am really excited to talk about recruiting. This is something that I've been a teacher. This is my 7th year, but before I became a teacher, I had worked in organizational recruiting for college student organizations. And what I realized when I got into teaching and I started teaching computer science, a subject that really needs growth, is that a lot of the same strategies that we used to grow organizations for college students work for middle and high school programs as well. So that's me. My core underlying educational philosophy is that I believe that kids deserve to do big, meaningful work, and that all students are deserving and capable of work that is fun, challenging, and fulfilling. And I love teaching computer science because I feel like as computer science teachers, we have the opportunity to do that kind of work with kids every day. We empower kids to take on this skill that they can use to better their communities and the world now. They don't have to wait until they become adults. And I think that that is so cool. So like I said, I currently teach high school computer science. I also am currently on the writing team for Code.org's new CSA curriculum. I have taught middle school computer science and worked on curriculum for the middle school level. I was a project lead doing master teacher. I've done a lot in the CS Ed space. And then for this particular workshop, the thing that's most important for you to know is that at both the middle and high school level in 2 very different schools, I was able to work with administration and with other teachers in the building to grow both a middle school and high school program by nearly 400% each, both over the course of 2 years. So the high school that I currently teach at, when I came into this position, we only offered foundations of computer science. We had 2 sections of foundations of computer science in a 2,000 person school. And this year we offer a full CS pathway. So this is 2 years later. including APCSA, APCSP, and Programming 1, and we have 9 total sections of computer science. So in a school where we struggle to fill 2 sections of FOCS. So some things we'll talk about today is the difference between active and passive recruiting, why it matters that we focus on active recruiting instead of passive. We'll explore some of those benefits of incorporating active recruiting. You'll experience some active recruiting strategies as a participant, and then you will leave with a framework and tools to grow your computer science program. So I'm going to share lots of different tools with you, and not all of them will work for your school, and that's fine. Some of them you'll see and you'll say, this might work, but I need to adapt it. That is totally fine. I'm going to give you all of my templates, and my hope is that you take it and you make it work for you, your students, and your school. So here I will drop the link in the chat. So in this toolkit, you will find all of the resources we're going to go over today, and also sort of a game planning worksheet. So if you want to jot down notes, you want to make some or write down some ideas that come up for you of some of the best strategies that we talk about, that's in this toolkit link as well. And then we're just going to get right into it. So a few core things that we have to all sort of start with and agree with. Number one, this thing that we call passive recruiting. So things like putting up a flyer or relying on the course description in your bulletin for students to sign up for courses, attract what we call, that is my 5-month-old. I apologize in advance. He wants to participate. Passive recruiting attracts what we call always joiners. Always joiners are students who know that they want to take a computer science class. This is something that they have been looking forward to. They know that it's something that is, y'all give me 1 second. It's asking me if I'm playing music. 1 second, I'm gonna pick him up and he'll be less chatty. 1 second. Okay. Always joiners are students who know they want to take computer science, right? They're people who have seen themselves in tech or in coding their whole lives. And so they know that your class is something that they want to take, right? They're the students who see it in the bulletin, no questions asked. They're going to sign up for it. They're going to take it, and they'll probably be successful. Those are the students who probably already know they want to major in it in college too. And so when we do things that are passive, we're attracting students who already know they want to take our class, and we're unnecessarily or unintentionally excluding students who maybe have never considered computer science, but would be great fits. All right, number 2, a full computer science program is an opportunity for another class. If your computer science program is full, that means that you have students in your school who probably would sign up if there was more space. Number 3, we can't recruit who we don't know. So a core component of active recruiting is that we're going to focus on figuring out how to meet more people, whether that's us meeting more people or our students meeting more people or other teachers meeting more people and connecting them to us. At the end of the day, if we make a connection with a student or a student in our program makes a connection with a student, they're going to be more likely to take computer science and to stay in computer science, which is something that we, our goal is, and something that some of you had mentioned in the chat. All right, I know that there are a few other people who have joined us recently, so I'm going to go ahead and drop the toolkit again in case you need it. And this is all of the resources we're going to be going over today. Okay, great. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the why. And this is a statement or a question that I get a lot when I talk to people about recruiting, and they say, my classes are full. I don't need to recruit. Why would I need to recruit if I have full computer science classes? So we're going to talk about that myth and a few others. and why we still need to recruit, even if you're filling classes and you have no problems getting students to sign up. So a few categories of people who still need to recruit, or I'll say computer science teachers who still need to recruit. Number one, you struggle to fill computer science courses. If this is you, you probably know you need to recruit, right? You have lots of courses that you want to offer, but you don't necessarily have the interest. So you might end up with classes that are combined. I know there are schools in my district where they're offering both AP Computer Science A and Programming 1, and a teacher is trying to teach both of those classes in one section, which is a challenge. So we need to recruit because we have spaces to fill. You also need to recruit if your computer science classes lack diversity, whether that's gender diversity, racial diversity, neurodivergence, socioeconomic status, or English language learners. There's lots of different types of diversity. And if our computer science courses don't look like our school, chances are there are students in our school that we're missing in our current recruitment practices. And then finally, your computer science courses are jam-packed. That means that there's no room for more students to sign up. In my experience, this particular bullet, this idea that our courses are jam-packed, and so we have no more space for students, this can sometimes be the most problematic, because what ends up happening when we're in this situation with jam-packed courses, hand off a baby. Thank you. Okay. When we're in this situation with jam-packed courses, there are students that we're missing because we simply don't have anywhere to put them. So the way this has shown up with some teachers that I work with is they'll see things like, well, if I recruit more students, then the kids who really want to be there won't have a spot. And the reality is that, and we're going to talk about this in a second, is that there are kids who have never been approached about computer science who would be great fits for your class. And it's not that they're not interested, it's that they don't even know enough to know whether or not they are interested. So we have three types of students in your school when it comes to computer science. We have what we call always joiners. These are students who know they want to take computer science. These are the kids that don't even need a flyer. They show up as freshmen, they are in your foundations class, and they are going to stay in the program for all 4 years. And while we could continue to recruit these kids, the reality is that these kids already know they want to take computer science. They don't need to be recruited because they already know. We then have this category called never joiners, and never joiners are students who know about computer science and they know that they do not want to take a computer science course. They have no interest, doesn't matter how you approach them, it's not for them. The bulk of our students fall into this middle category. They're what we call maybe joiners. And maybe joiners are students who could be convinced to take your course if it were proposed the right way. Inside maybe joiners, we have two different types of students too. We have students who maybe have heard about computer science, but they don't know if it's for them or they're unconvinced that it's for them. And then we also have students who have never been approached about taking a computer science course. They might not even know that your course exists. When they think about electives, they're thinking about art, they're thinking about PE, they're not even thinking about computer science. It's not on our radar. And so for us, our strategies for growth in a program, for growing beyond the kids who already know they want to be there, really hinges on focusing on strategies for this middle section, the maybe joiners, the kids who, if you presented it the right way, could be convinced to take your course and would probably really do well in it and thrive. The way that we typically see recruitment happening for not just computer science, but lots of different types of courses that need recruitment, things like band, right? For example, electives in your schools. The typical way we recruit is what is called passive recruiting, and that attracts always joiners, students who already know, who don't need to be recruited, whereas active recruiting, the strategies that we'll talk about today, help us to target those maybe joiners and to truly focus on growing our enrollment and not just, coasting with the students who are always going to enroll no matter what. So there are some myths that we tell ourselves as computer science teachers. we say things like, if students wanted to take computer science, they would sign up. If I recruit other students, it'll take away spots from students who really want to take the course, and that's not fair. And my favorite is, my classes are full, so I don't need to recruit. Are there any other myths that you have heard or that you believe, I guess, when it comes to recruitment or growing your program, other than these three that you've heard? And if so, go ahead and drop them in the chat. Give it a minute. Like I said, these three are my favorite. I'm sure there are more, but there are some truths that we can use to replace those myths. So there are students in your school who don't know that computer science is an option for them, but would be great fits for your program. And typically this group is comprised of female students and students from other underrepresented groups in your school. The earlier students take computer science, the more likely they are to pursue it. And this is amplified for girls and other underrepresented groups. So this is a really important statistic, because what it means is that you, as a high school computer science teacher or a middle school computer science teacher, have this amazing opportunity to expose students to computer science early enough for it to change the trajectory of what they're going to do later on in life. So what the research tells us is that the earlier that students take CS, the more likely they are to pursue it. And that means that if they take it before college, they're more likely to go into college and sign up for those courses. That particular statistic, that before college statistic, is much higher for girls. So girls, this was one of the most interesting things that I read in the research when I was learning about this for the first time. Girls, when they get to college, or young women at that point, are more likely to accurately self-assess their capabilities as it relates to a subject. So what that means is that if a girl has never taken computer science, she'll look at an introductory computer science class, and she may look at that and say, I have no experience with this, and so I probably won't be successful. Whereas boys are more likely, not always, but more likely to assess it and say, well, I think I could handle that. I think I would be able to be successful in that way. And so what it means is that for us, we have this huge responsibility and opportunity really to expose students early so that they have that early exposure. So when they get to college, they're more likely to see their potential and see where they are able to be successful. And then finally, if your program lacks diversity, but it's full, it matters that groups are being excluded. And what I really mean by this is that if your computer science program looks very different than the rest of the makeup of your school, we need to have a conversation about why that is, right? What can we do differently to recruit from all student groups in your school, and not just those kids who are already signing up and taking computer science? All right, so before we go into the what, talking about what I mean when I say active recruiting versus passive recruiting, I want to go ahead and just pause and see if there are any questions or thoughts, so we can address them before we talk about the what and the how. Ooh, yeah, that's another one. I'm no good at math. Yep, I'm not good at math, so I wouldn't be good at computer science. Anybody have a good response to that? How might you counter it, or how have you countered it if a student tells you they're not good at math? I love to tell kids that computer science and math are different. So yes, yeah, I will definitely When I get to a good sort of stopping point, I will share the slide link as well. Great question. And you mentioned your counselor. I'm going to talk about meeting with counselors because that is a really good strategy. And I have in my template section of the toolkit, there's a flyer template for your counselor as well. Yeah. Cool. So I typically tell kids when they say they're not good at math that computer science is like math in action. And so even if you're not good at some types of math, computer science really has, some additional supports, and, you get to see math applied, and that there are many students who are good at computer science or enjoy computer science that maybe don't enjoy math as much. Okay, so when we talk about passive recruiting, what I mean by that is that we offer the same features to every student. So when we talk about features, I'm talking about things like one that comes up a lot is, well, if you major in, or if you study computer science, you can make a lot of money. Lots of times we say that you can get a really good paying job. And the reality is that, and I think many of us can relate to this, not everybody is motivated by that. Not everybody is motivated by lots and lots of money, right? Or whatever else we're choosing to use as that feature that we offer to every student. So passive recruiting, we're offering the same features to every student. We assume that the kids who want to take computer science will take computer science. And it uses passive strategies like hanging up flyers or relying on the course listing. Versus active recruiting, which acknowledges that students are individuals with different needs and different reasons for taking your course. And we're going to talk about this in a second, but my guess is that if we all brainstormed why we got into computer science, we would have lots of different answers, right? So we have to acknowledge that our students are also unique. They're individuals. They have different needs. They have different wants. And so we can't recruit them all the exact same way because it's not going to work. We also assume that kids who would love computer science need to be exposed to it as an option. If a kid doesn't know that it's a possibility, there's no way they're going to sign up for your class unless the counselor accidentally puts them in it, which has happened to me before. I've had students who have accidentally been put in my class. I'm like, oh, why did you take this class? They're like, my counselor put me here. And fortunately, they have a really good experience, or maybe they don't, but it's sort of up in the air. And we want to make sure that we are creating opportunities for kids to be exposed. So we're not relying on them getting lucky, put into a class that they didn't request. And then finally, we're going to prioritize authentic connection with students as foundational to recruitment. We cannot recruit who we don't know. All right, so 3 components of this. Number 1, skills. We have to know how to effectively grow our program. We must have the skills and the tools to do it. Number 2, we have to have some product knowledge. We have to understand computer science as a discipline, but we also have to understand the courses that we offer. We have to know the value of taking computer science. This product knowledge piece is so important if you're in a school that offers more than one course at various levels. So for example, the school that I currently teach at, after let's say that entry course, students could choose to take Foundations of Computer Science, or they could choose to take AP-CSP. And as a computer science teacher, I need to know the difference between those two so that I can help students decide which is the best fit for them. And I can educate the counselors so that they're able to help students navigate that course selection as well. And then finally, this audience awareness. So understanding the different types of students who might take a computer science course, how do we find them? And what is the value of computer science to them? Not what is the value of computer science to the world or to us or to our school community, but why is computer science valuable to them? Why are they interested in taking the course? How might it better serve their interests, their talents, their life goals, etc. All right, so in the chat, and if you can we share it to everyone, or is it just, if you can, or either way, I'll share them out without names attached to them, but let me know why did you take your first computer science course? Whenever you took your first CS course, why did you take it? And while you're doing that, I'm going to minimize and I will share my slides so you have them. All right, so we've got a few different ones coming in. We've got that it was part of a degree program. You liked computers. You thought they were fun. Interested in technology. Requisite for your major. Yep. So I took my first computer science course because I went to a science and tech high school and I had to take computer science. I was supposed to take it as a freshman in high school, and I put it off for 3 years because I thought I would be bad at it. And this was actually a ridiculous thing to think, because when I was a kid, some of the things that I really liked doing for fun were, those like logic puzzle books where you could go in and it would give you like 6 clues and you had to find out which person went with which color or which pet or whatever, right? I liked doing logic puzzles for fun. And so it shouldn't have been any sort of surprise that computer science was something that was interesting to me. But I put off taking this freshman level course until I was a senior because I was afraid of it. And because it had never been presented to me in a way that seemed like something I would like, right? I had taken a tech class as a freshman and I didn't like that. And I thought that computer science was just like tech, and it wasn't, right? They were different. But a lot of us have mentioned that, you had to take it for your major. It seemed like it might be fun. You liked computers, you were interested in it. So even in this room, virtual room, where all of us, have somehow found our way to being computer science teachers, we all have different reasons that we took that first course. And your students are the same way. So if we all have different reasons for taking CS, why do we market our courses to our students in only one way? And maybe you don't already do this. Maybe you already have some strategies and you're looking to find some more strategies. But a lot of times we market our courses in one way, right? We put up a flyer that says, if you're interested in computers, if you're interested in problem solving, if you're interested in logic, take computer science. If you want job security, take computer science, right? And we market in one way to many students. So instead, we're going to approach this with some actionable ways to grow our program that focus on students as individuals, and work towards us connecting with as many students as possible, whether it's 1 degree, right? Me connecting with a student, 2 degrees, me connecting with my students who connect with their friends, or, 3 degrees, maybe we're working through teachers, maybe we're working through counselors. Our goal is connection. So acknowledging that every student has different needs, every student is going to have different reasons for taking a computer science course. We are going to prioritize genuine connection over scripted pitches. Everything we do is towards growing our network, reaching more students, and finding ways to present this opportunity to them, so that they can be exposed and then decide whether or not this is the right fit for them. All right, so instead of doing what we've always done, things like flyers, things like course bulletins, things like being okay with the fact that our courses are full and not recruiting, we are going to change it up a little. We're going to start by being genuinely curious. We're going to ask students about their interests and find the connections to computer science, right? So if a student tells us that they love fashion, maybe we're going to talk about wearable tech, but we're not just going to talk about wearable tech to every girl that we meet because we think that that might be of interest, right? We'll acknowledge the qualities that we see in them. Are they creative? Are they tenacious? Why is that beneficial for computer science? So if you have a student who maybe you had in another class, or we're going to walk through this exercise to help us generate names from teachers, right? If a teacher sees creativity in them, how can we connect their quality of being creative to then potentially being successful in our computer science class? Share your own story. So talk about how you got into computer science. Talk about what it felt like to take your first computer science class. Or, I always tell my students, I talk to them about what it felt like for me when I went to the University of Georgia. And I actually, because I took computer science as a senior, my intention was to major in political science and be a lawyer. And then I got to college and I really missed computer science and math classes. So I took a bunch of CS and math classes. And one of the classes that I took was this discrete math, or some schools call it discrete structures course. And I was the only girl in the course. I was the only female in the course, 40-person course. And I had the highest grade in the class. And I remember feeling alone because even though I liked it and even though I was good at it, nobody wanted to study with me. I was kind of alone in my study groups. And it wasn't until I took a few other computer science classes and I was able to meet other females taking it that I really felt like I belonged, even though I was successful in the course. And so when students talk to me about being nervous about that, I relate to that on a very basic level because that was my experience as a student. And that doesn't mean lie. That doesn't mean make up your experience, but you can get vulnerable with kids. You can share your experience with them. You can share what it was like for you to take CS for the first time. A great way that we see this happen is when students are going through bugs, right? When students are struggling to get their program to work. I always talk about this with kids. I'm like, look, I have been programming for 17 years at this point, and I still make mistakes all of the time, right? Being willing to make mistakes with them, be vulnerable, and share our own stories. And then finally, connecting them with other students like them. So we're going to talk about ways for you to meet new students and bring new students into your program, but don't be afraid to connect them with other students. So if Francis comes to talk to me about taking computer science and Francis reminds me of JT, I'm going to ask JT if I can connect him and Francis via email, or if Francis can come to class and he can meet JT, because they remind me of each other. And maybe when they find that connection, they'll see how they belong in my course as well. All right, so a few things to keep in mind before we actually get into these strategies, and I am right on time. Awesome. Number one, we cannot recruit who we don't know. If we haven't made a connection to student, if we don't have a connection to them, and they are not an always joiner, we can't convince them to join our course. So number one, we can't recruit who we don't know. Number two, every student you meet is connected to dozens of other students. One really great strategy that I've seen lots of schools implement with success, especially when they are struggling to recruit female students, is they don't just recruit one female student, they recruit a group of friends. And that group of friends comes and signs up to take the class. They're excited because they're going to take the class all together as friends. And it's actually supported by research, because what research tells us is one of the top reasons that women stay in computing as a profession, stay in it as a major, stay in it in high school, is because they find what's called a socioeconomic peer group. They have a group of people like them, and so they see themselves as belonging. So we can connect with other students through students. We also can recruit groups of students all together. And then finally, we're not going to prejudge anyone. It's not your place to decide whether or not somebody will like computer science. It's to offer them the information and the opportunity and allow them to make that decision for themselves. All right, so we have multiple modes of recruiting. Number one, we'll talk about how we can go directly to the students. We'll talk about how we can work with counselors. If you are in a high school, counselors are your best friends, because the counselor is meeting typically with many, if not all students before they sign up for classes. So counselors are a wonderful partner to have in your journey to increasing and growing your program. We'll collaborate with other teachers. And then the last strategy I'm going to talk about requires a little bit of administrative support, but especially if you are high school or a middle school that has feeder elementary schools, visiting feeder schools can be a really good way of increasing and growing your program. The more students we talk to, the more students we recruit. Bottom line is quantity drives enrollment. The more kids we are able to talk with, the more students learn about this opportunity that could be for them, and the more likely they are to join our courses. All right, so if you're in the slides, all of these are clickable: the email template, presentation, and scheduling. So the first strategy we have is going directly to the students, and the goal with this is to get face-to-face with as many students as possible. The way that I suggest doing this, and what's been really successful for me, is connecting with one department chair in your school. I like to go through math because every kid has to take a math class every year in my district. And so if I am connecting with math teachers, I am reaching every student, or have the potential to reach every student. You could choose any. So if you have a great relationship with the social studies department chair, then maybe you're going to go through social studies. I would suggest going through one department only because our time is super limited, right? And so if we can't go to every class, and if we split ourselves among departments, we may see some students multiple times and other students not at all. So I suggest going through one department chair and telling them, hey, I'd really love to be able to expose more students to computer science. I think there are more kids that are interested in taking this course. Again, if you go through math or even science, it's really nice because you can relate it to their course. So math teachers are usually really supportive of computer science, in my experience. But again, sharing your goal, coordinating as many classroom visits as possible to highlight the differences between the courses you offer. So what I ended up doing, and all of these templates are linked here for you, but essentially you email the department chair and you come up with a schedule of when you're available to go speak, or if you have other people in your department, other computer science teachers, maybe you're splitting it, right? So I went during my planning periods. You could go, maybe you give up one planning period, you have another team member that's giving up another planning period, and you just go do 5-minute visits where all you're doing is talking about the different courses, introducing yourself so students know who you are. And if you feel up to it, and this is something that I did because it was part of my job and because I just really like meeting with students, offering students the chance to schedule a one-on-one meeting. So when I went and did this with math, when I do this with math classes, my goal here is to talk about, hey, at Paint Branch, we offer 4 different computer science classes, and you might not know which one you want to take. So let me highlight which one you might want to sign up for, depending on what you're interested in. The other thing that you can do with this, and maybe this is your strategy because you don't have the time to go visit classes, is you can also create a short video and ask teachers to post it to their learning management system, or even better, ask them if they'll take 5 minutes at the start of class to play that video for their students and to give out your contact information so that if students have more questions, they can follow up with you or schedule a time to meet. The next thing that I want to talk about is working with counselors. So somebody mentioned this in the chat, sharing these slides with their counselors. And I also included this template, which is a one-pager where your goal here is to give counselors as much information as they need to successfully advise students to take your class without overwhelming them. So we're giving them tools to advise students on the best computer science course. This is important not just for the kids, because what we don't want, right? We don't necessarily want every freshman to end up in APCSA. That might be really overwhelming for most freshmen. But we want students to end up in a course where they're going to be challenged, they're going to also be able to be successful, and you as the teacher are going to be able to offer a rigorous but enjoyable experience for every student. So I found that the best way to do this, acknowledging that counselors are so busy, right? Counselors at the high school level especially, they're writing recommendations, they're meeting with lots of students, is to create a one-pager that highlights your different offerings and includes your email address. And then scheduling a meeting during their department meeting if you're able. So sending the one-pager ahead of time, showing up at the department meeting, if you can swing it, bringing some donuts, right? And talking to them about your different offerings, and then answering any questions they have. What I've found is that when you work with counselors, the most important thing to be able to communicate with them is what types of students should be taking which classes, right? So for example, at my high school, we offer 2 different courses that students can take for their tech credit. They could take Foundations of Computer Science, or they could take AP Computer Science Principles. Both of them count as their tech credit. And so when I'm talking with counselors, if a student is driven, if they're interested in taking AP classes and they need that tech credit, I want that counselor to advise them to take APCSP, not FOCS, right? Because they'll get both things. They'll get a rigorous course and they'll get the tech credit, right? If a student doesn't need the tech credit and they're going to major in STEM in college and they're a senior and they're choosing between APCSP and APCSA, I've communicated with the counselors that I probably want that student to take APCSA if they've had success in some other, rigorous STEM courses, because if they're going to go on to major in a STEM field, APCSA is more likely to translate into credit for them than APCSP, which typically counts as a gen ed credit. So getting clear on what your offerings are, what prerequisites there are, and getting some face-to-face time with counselors so you can answer their questions. And then they meet you in person. And so they're more likely to reach out to you if they have a student who's kind of on the bubble, right? They have a student that wants to take CS. They're not exactly sure how to place them. And so they have your contact info. They know you're very interested in growing your program, and they'll probably reach out to you and ask you to help figure out what course the student should take. All right, before we talk about the next one, I just want to pause because I know I've been talking for a while and see if there are any questions or ideas. If you have ideas related to either of these that you want to share, I know we all bring our own expertise and insight, and I would definitely love to hear from you too. All right. Feel free to drop questions though if they come up. I am watching the chat. Oh, cool. Oh yeah, this is a great question. How do you convince admin and counselors to offer more? So there's a couple ways you could do this. Depending on, so the first thing that I would do is, just asking for clarification, are you in a school district or are you in like a private setting?
Okay to talk?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I could talk or if I had,
Yeah.
sorry, I joined a little bit late. I'm at a school, this is the second year I'm teaching APCSP, and before this, there was no computer science at all at my school. So they really have no idea what's out there or, what else we could offer. So yeah, I would like to hear from you or from other people who have been able to introduce other courses into their school besides just the one.
Yeah. So in my experience, the school that I'm at now, when I first started teaching, we were only offering FOCS, but in our district, there are actually 4 different courses. And actually there's more that we could offer later on, but there's 4 courses that are offered at many high schools. So FOCS, Foundations, APCSP, APCSA, and Programming 1. And so my first step was identifying those courses that we didn't offer and going to my department chair, going to my admin, and advocating for those courses that the district already offered that just weren't being offered at our school. We looked at it as sort of a phased approach. So in year 2, we offered APCSP and APCSA because we knew we were going to have interest in both of those. They offered both of the offerings, and they both filled beyond, the 20 students or 25 students that were required to offer the course. So that would be my first thought is if you're in a district, see what other courses your district offers. If you're not in a district, if you're in a private school setting, look at other comparable schools and see what they offer and see if you can advocate for those classes that already exist. Because I think sometimes and the other thing is then saying, can we offer this, right? Because most schools, your kids are signing up, they're not signing up for courses the summer before, they're signing up for courses earlier on it, or not earlier, but in the previous school year. And so asking if you can just put it on the card. Can we put it on the card for kids to choose from? And then maybe you're talking with your APCSP kids who are already in that course, who may then want to register for the next course and advocating, for them to register for that next course. So you're showing that there's interest. Yeah. Heather?
That helps a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, and definitely, if you want, email me. I'll put my email at the end here, and we can talk more one-on-one about it and about the specific situation, because sometimes it's just approaching it a different way, relating it to, perhaps your school improvement plan or other areas of growth that your school or your district are trying to experience, and showing how what you're trying to do fits in with that. Okay, so this actually I think would help too for you. So this is my favorite strategy. And the reason it's my favorite strategy is because names lists are used in all types of recruitment, but they're really effective in identifying people that you don't know, but that other people know. So our goal with this is to generate a list of potential computer science students that you can connect with. The best way to do this is to ask if you can run what's called a names list build during a faculty meeting, or if you have more time or your school is very large and you're doing department meetings, during those department meetings, going and running this names list build. If you can't do that, that's okay. You can do, well, this is what I did last year because we were, totally virtual. But it's also a good secondary way to do it if you're not able to do a names list build in person at a meeting. But you can send out an email with a Google form attached to garner names, and you're going to incentivize participation in some way. So this might be, maybe you'll bring donuts to the department that I like donuts because they're really cheap, right? So maybe you're going to bring donuts to the department that generates the most names. We're going to actually go through this exercise so you can see what this looks like. But essentially what we're doing is we're tapping into the knowledge from other teachers in the school. So knowing that we have not met every student in our school, we're asking other teachers to think about the qualities that we see in successful computer science students and asking them to help us generate a list of names. Then we're going to email those students, tell them they were recommended by their teacher. So, hi, Sarah, your teacher, Miss Tyler, said that she saw or said that you would be a great fit to take a computer science course. Here's a video about the different computer science courses at Paint Branch. If you want to talk more about this, here's my calendar, schedule a one-on-one meeting with me. I'd love to talk with you about these different offerings. I don't know if you've ever considered computer science, but Miss Tyler thinks you would be a great fit. And so I'd love to help you learn more. I've included on this presentation and in the toolkit, the presentation I'm about to go through, the teacher email. So if you're going to do a passive way of garnering email names, that teacher email, and then the student email template that I use to follow up with students. All right, so open up something that you can use to jot down names, either your computer, your phone, grab a piece of paper, whatever it is. Or if you don't want to jot down things, I know we're getting close on time, just think through it in your head. And what we're going to do is we are going to come up with a list of names. So I'm going to give you some mind joggers. And as I give you these mind joggers, I want you to write down any names of students that come up for you when you hear these different mind joggers. The rules with this are that you're not going to prejudge anyone. We're using this to come up with a list of students who might take CS, but it's not the time to decide if someone is qualified to take computer science or even if they'd be interested in it. We just want to connect with as many students as possible. You're going to keep writing until time is up, and your goal here is to focus on writing down names, and we can always add other information later. So if you were doing this with other teachers, you would go over these rules, and we're going to make it kind of a contest. We're going to see who can get the most names. Most people who do this activity can come up with 10 to 20 student names, and we're going to see who can get the most. Oops. All right. We're going to go through just a few of these so that I can make sure I get through that last strategy. All right, you are going to write down all the students you know who are creative. Write down all the students you know who are tenacious. This might be students in your current classes, could be students in previous year's classes, could be students in clubs that you advise, or students who are leaders in the school who you just know because they say hi to you in the halls. Students who enjoy solving problems. Students who like collaborating. And maybe students who took one computer science course with you, but not another. And if you've been playing along, this has just been a couple minutes. How many names were you able to jot down if you played along with me? Yeah. So it looks like several of you have 10, and we've only been writing for 2 minutes. So the goal here, yeah, 8, 10, it's amazing. If you're doing this at a faculty meeting, I'd give them about 30 seconds to a minute. And like I said, this presentation is linked for you to already go ahead and use. Give them 30 seconds to a minute with each mind jogger so that they can think and write down names of students. And then, like I said, we're going to follow up with those students. We'll tell them which teacher recommended them and offer them the opportunity to talk with us further about the different courses they could take. The last strategy that is super effective, if you're able to do it, and I'm acknowledging that you have to have administrative buy-in for this, But visiting your feeder school and connecting with rising 9th graders or rising 6th or 7th graders, depending on when middle school starts, to expose them to offerings is a really effective way to build your program. And so what you do is you're going to connect with the science teachers at the feeder middle school or elementary school, and offer to visit their classes and do a mini computational thinking lesson. Computational thinking is covered in the NGSS. And so it's something that already aligns to standards, and you'll come in, you'll do an activity. My favorite is Program the Teacher, which I have included in that folder for you. And then after they've participated in whatever that mini activity is, you'll then introduce courses that are appropriate for freshmen. So I was able to introduce FOCS, but also APCSP, because some of our feeder middle schools offer that Foundations of Computer Science course to 8th graders. And so some of those students are also able to take APCSP. I threw a lot of information at you, and I'm going to show my email here. I'm going to stay on for questions. I know there's another session right after me, but I definitely want to be able to answer any questions that you have. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is we have to think about who is missing from your classes, that if we put in a little bit of extra work, we could reach, right? Targeted work to reach students who are not currently enrolled. Number 2, you have the power to expose a student to computer science, which could be life-changing. I know if I had been exposed to computer science as a freshman in high school, perhaps I would have pursued computer science as a degree option rather than just deciding to take some more classes. It all worked out really well for me. I love being a computer science teacher. I'm so happy to be doing it. But you have the opportunity to be that life-changing catalyst for students in your school, because exposing them before college makes them more likely to take that course once they get to college, if it's something they're interested in. And then finally, program growth gets to be fun. Talking with students is one of the best parts of our job, and recruiting in this way, doing active recruiting strategies, is a way to make recruitment fun again, and not just have it be something that we have to check off our list. That doesn't necessarily always work the way we want it to. All right, and we are right at time. So in the chat, let me know, and then I'm going to put up my contact info. So if you have to hop off, you have to go. What is your one big takeaway from today? One big takeaway. I'll throw this up for you as well. Thank you so much for being here. Get to the kids. Oh, I love that. Active recruiting. Yeah. And reach out if you need anything at all. Happy CS Ed Week. Thank you so much for being a computer science teacher. The kids, your kids, are lucky to have you. I know this year is hard, and I'm glad we're all in it together.